All right, let's get it. This is Nap Nose Buffalo, and we are coming off of a huge win, 35 nothing against the Dolphins. To sum it up real short, I mean, we'll get into it a little bit more, but it was a dominating performance by the defense, which
Yeah,
was really fun to watch. And I would say the offense was average. We'll talk about that a little
yeah,
bit more. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I
It
mean,
was fun though. It was fine. This was the type of game where you can start to see things getting put together, and it was fun to watch. Last week was
it
not
was
fun to
not
watch.
fun to
This week
watch.
was very fun to watch.
I'll say this, like the Tua. I'm not a Tua hater. I'm not.
I am.
I'm not a Tua. I'm not like you,
I hope
right?
I hope he heals
Like
up though. Like I
obviously, we don't want
definitely don't
that.
want injuries, but I
Yeah,
don't believe in him.
and what I say next goes with, hey, I hope he heals up as well. When he's in the game, he doesn't scare me. When Brissett came into the game, I was like, oh, like now it might actually be a game. You know what I'm saying? And to his credit, if that offensive line had held up, he probably would have done a lot more than putting up 0 points. And they had some bad like fourth down calls, like going for 1 4. I understand, like you're down, it's still early, and you're trying to like put it together a successful drive, get the momentum back. I understand that, but they had a lot of bad luck.
Hmm.
Receivers not catching passes. Like it wasn't on Brissett, but I think he gives them the best chance of winning. It's not Tua. Even if Tua comes back healthy, it's like, hey man, you just got Wally pipped. Like honestly, it should be Brissett.
Like the clip with Belichick and was it Welker when he said that to him on the sideline with Edelman had the punt return touchdown. I think. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. I mean, it's
yeah,
so I put out. I don't know if you saw it or not. I think you might have, but I put out the tweet like maybe mid second quarter. It was probably like two or three series after Tua had gotten hurt and he left the game. And I just posed the question on Twitter: Are the Dolphins like is their offense better without Tua? Because at the time, like they were moving the ball. They obviously
they're
didn't end
moving
up
the ball.
scoring, and that was the big thing. A lot of people who said no ended up being like, well, no, like they scored 0 points with Tua, they scored 0 points with Brissett. Clearly, they're not better. But when you actually watch the game, it still felt different. Like the Bills were still very much in control, and we'll get to
Yeah,
why with our likes and dislikes in a second. But it felt like Tua just was lost. He was scared as soon as the Bills ended up having pressure. He was just done. The play was over. With Brissett, it felt like he moved around a little bit more and he was ready to either move up in the pocket or move on to a second read. He made some more plays happen, whereas Tua just kind of crumbled. And like I have been very outwardly spoken about how, hey, I don't believe in Tua. I don't think he's as bad as he was on Sunday, but I think that continued to prove my theory of he just doesn't have that it factor because when it
hard.
comes down to playing against somebody a defense that's good, he's not all there if they get in his face even just a little bit.
Well, I was gonna say hard to be good when your offensive line is crumbling around you, and
Right. Which is why
Brissett
that's
was.
a big reason why they didn't score at all.
Yeah, yeah, and Brissett was better, right? But he's also been in the league for a little bit longer. He's had the time to learn a lot more things than Tua has. I just think that Tua right now is in a situation, you know, like old Sammy D was up in New York, right? Where it was like, hey, there's no offensive line. He's seeing ghosts, blah, blah, blah. Tua honestly needs a fresh start and needs to take the Jameis Winston route and go
But
and
is
sit
it
behind somebody
it's not always that great if you need a fresh start
after 2 years.
a year and two
And
games into your career. You shouldn't
but
need a fresh start at that point.
Tua hasn't had the starting job for that long,
That's
right?
true. So that
Last
makes
year
it even worse.
it makes it worse,
It makes
but
it
at the
worse.
same time, it's like why do you have a franchise quarterback or want and hope to have a franchise quarterback, but you can't keep any quarterback that's behind there on their feet long enough to make a play, right? You can't even do screenplays without three or four defenders in your face. And
Hmm.
screenplays, we're talking like 0.5 seconds of release time, and we have defenders back there. That means basically they're doing one Mississippi with the offensive line, right? So I'm not at the point where I'm like Tua's not it, which a lot of people are at that point. I'm just like, man, I hate to see a quarterback who had so much success in college, right, and go to the NFL. But it's like these NFL teams are not giving their rookie or their, hey, franchise quarterbacks, quote unquote, enough to succeed, right? At least with the Bills, they built around the quarterback position and then went and got a quarterback. So when Josh got there, now the offensive line has always been shit since, Bean and McDermott have been there. It's never been
I know
really
you have
solidified.
your own thoughts about that.
Yeah. And I'm sure it'll get better, but, we saw what Josh was like when an offensive line is crumbling. Look at the Steelers game. So it's hard to look at Tua, and after he had 2 series?
Yeah, he only and that's the thing. He only really played 2 series. So I don't want to bash him too much. Obviously, like he had his injury. Hopefully he heals up okay and he can come back and play during the season. Hopefully the ribs don't end up being something that kind of lingers. So, heal up, but I still just don't really believe in him. That's just that. Don't want to spend too much time bashing Tua though. We have our likes and our dislikes. Do you want to do likes first or dislikes?
It's a win, so let's do likes.
Let's do likes first. Okay. All right, let's start off with the positive. So I'm just going to run through my list real quick, and then you give me any sort of add-ons or throw in whatever you want whenever you hear something that you like too. First thing, Devin Singletary. I thought just in general,
love it.
Devin Singletary was very good all game. Obviously, not every single run was a huge run, but he did break off the big one, and that kind of jump-started things at the beginning of the game, and it made the game feel different than I think it felt before that run happened. Like, as soon as he had that run, I was like, oh, the Bills could, like, dominate this game.
Yeah.
Before the run happened, I was like, I expect a win, but I'm not totally sure how it's going to end up happening. As soon as Devin Singletary ripped off the, 46-yard run, I think it was, I was super confident in the game moving forward from there on out. Next thing, Isaiah McKenzie as a returner just didn't have a fumble this time. That's a huge thing. But like that is huge because there's consistency in that now. He did it for an entire game. Now I want to see him do it for 2 games. Then I want to see him do it for 3. And he looked much more confident than he did last week. Outside of that first return, he just looked good this week as the return man. So I thought it was really promising what I saw from him.
While you're on special teams, let's just shout out the whole special teams core as a whole. For one, it was a bounce back.
Mm-hmm.
My thumb. It was bounce back from them, letting up a touchdown last game, right? It was a bounce back game, and they had a really solid game. Created a turnover off a muffed punt. But yeah, I thought special teams played good because there's 3 phases of football. So shout out special teams.
We will talk about special teams again in a little bit. I will, in general, shout out special teams. Dawson Knox, he only had 2 catches, I believe, but the touchdown catch was really good, and he had his other catch for a first down. It was 2 for 2.
Oh,
yeah. He caught everything. We're going 2 weeks in a row now where he caught everything. I want to see Dawson Knox get involved in this game plan more because so far I know it's a limited sample size. Hasn't been a whole lot of targets his way, but when there have been targets his way, he's made the play. And that's what I care about. He's doing what he needs to do to warrant getting more targets.
Does he have 100% catch rate this season?
I believe he does.
Oh,
if he doesn't, there's only been 1 pass his way that wasn't, but I think it's 100%. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. That's wild. All right, moving on.
So, I mean, yeah, until he has any sort of issues, like the haters can back off Dawson Knox. I want to see him involved a little bit more.
Big Knox podcast.
Yes, and that just kind of transitions right into the next thing that I liked, which was the red zone offense, because Dawson Knox scored when the Bills were in the red zone. Last week, one of the big issues against the Steelers was the fact that the red zone offense was just terrible. They got into the red zone multiple times and did not come away with I don't think they came away with multiple times they did not come away with a touchdown. So there was issues there. This time, they scored when they got into the red zone. Touchdowns and field goals. Oh, no, they didn't score a field goal. My bad on that one. Touchdowns. So they scored when they got into the red zone, and they scored with touchdowns. So the red zone offense was actually good this week, which was similar to last year. Last year, the red zone offense was really good. They scored consistently when they got in, and they scored touchdowns consistently. I know the offense wasn't perfect this week. We'll get into that in a second. But when you score touchdowns and you score touchdowns consistently, it's going to it's going to kind of mask the other issues at the like during that game.
At the moment, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so I loved the red zone offense in general, and Zach Moss was a big part of that. Obviously,
Yes.
don't like the fumble he had at the beginning, but he was able to rebound when he got back into the game, when he was given his opportunity, which shout out to him. I don't know if everybody saw the Twitter post by him, but apparently the Saturday morning before the game, he actually had to bury, I think, his aunt. So he was going through the whole grieving process. So him, his family is not an easiest of time. And then he had his fumble, and he was able to come back and actually score 2 touchdowns. Huge day for him to be able to bounce back like that, especially with everything else that was going on in his personal life. And not to mention, like, he bulldozed a guy. His second touchdown run,
yes,
he sunned someone. I think that's probably the best way to put it.
Shout out to the coaching staff for going back to him. You know, he was inactive for the first game. They put him in. All of a sudden, he fumbles. There's got to be some reason why he's inactive. Maybe he's not up to game speed yet from being injured during the preseason. So you put him on the inactive list. And then all of a sudden you put him in the game, and you're already thinking, he's not up to game speed. Let's get him a few, touches here and there and just get him going. And then he fumbles. And then to have, the guts to go back to him and be like, you know what, let's go ahead and put him back in. Let's see what happens. And it paid off. 2 touchdowns is, some guys dream to have 1 touchdown, right? So that's big time. Shout out coaching staff.
And I will say that is a huge step forward for McDermott to be able and willing to do that, because he had a fumble early on in the game last year against the 49ers, and he was benched. Yeah, and that's what I expected. So I was pleasantly surprised when he got another opportunity during the game, and I was even happier to see him actually convert those opportunities. So great day for him. And then the last thing on my likes is just all things defense. Doesn't matter where you point to. I liked the pressure that the defensive line got. I know you're going to have a lot to say about guys on the defensive line. I just want to point out AJ Epinesa, because he's the guy that I've kind of backed this year. He was incredible. He didn't get the sacks that we wanted him to get or that we thought he was going to get in the game, but I think he had 8 or 9 pressures, which is
he had
just
the most
an
pressures.
Insane amount for, I think, like 34 snaps he had. Insane pressure rate, and it's not like that's a one-off thing. He was getting those pressures against the Steelers too. The sacks are going to come for him. He's going to end up getting a lot of sacks this year, or at least they're going to – I think he'll probably – my guess of close to double digits might come true with him, because the way he's getting pressure, it's consistent. He's beating guys on like wherever he wants to, however he wants to. So great for him. Other guys on the defensive line, I'll leave that to you. But then the secondary looked really good. Levi Wallace, I know he had to leave the game because of an injury, but that was a really good interception that he was able to get. I
was going to tell you Levi Wallace revenge game or redemption game, right?
It was a redemption half, I think. But great play by him.
Yeah, and I think maybe it's not the coach. The coaching staff probably is not sitting there thinking, oh, man, Levi's a liability. But the fans, man, there are a lot of Levi haters out there. And I'm sure I have said bad things about Levi.
We said last week in our preview that Levi was kind of the key point to the defense this week of are they going to be able to pick on him or not? And when he was in the game, they were not able to pick on him. He actually was the one who was making plays.
Yeah, which is great. That's what you want to see for somebody who's opposite of, Trey. So that's awesome. I love that. I hope he gets healthy. They're working out a couple of cornerbacks, but those guys I don't think will come up onto the roster. I think they're just practice squad to have in case of injury. I think Dane Jackson's shot is now.
Now we find out what he's made out of.
Yeah, and then we'll probably go back to Levi when he gets healthy again. So, but Greg Russo, 2 sacks so far. 2 sacks on the season so far. That's one. That's 1 sack a game. That's pretty good. That's 17.
He's on pace. Yeah, he's on pace.
Right, he's on pace for 17. That's pretty good. It's funny because, I talked about Jalen Phillips, probably having more sacks than Russo this year just because of the opportunity. And Greg Russo heard it. He's a big fan of the show, and he said, "Man, Casey, shut up. right? And he went
Didn't
out there
he
and
DM'd you and said that you're just like your prediction was
he
terrible, right?
yeah, he told me that my prediction was trash. No, he didn't DM me, but he showed up. He showed out, and he's doing it in the run game. He's doing it in the passing game. He's doing it in all phases, really, when it comes to the defensive line. So, and that is very encouraging to see. Right? You don't want just I don't know. Imagine having T.J. Watt, right? And I don't know if T.J. is good against the run. He probably is, but having someone out of
He's good
caliber,
everywhere.
yeah, having somebody as good as T.J. Watt, right? And then they don't stop the run, so they just run the ball at that side like that. That would make me upset. But knowing that you get a first rounder who is good against the passing game but can also stop the run, like that is something Bills Mafia really needs, right? The run game, run defense sucked last year. This year it's doing pretty daggum good. Shout out to the defense, man. They're bringing back the 2019 defense.
2019 defense. I mean, that's what I said when we were talking to who was it? It was one of the crossover episodes. I said, like, look, if the Bills have their 2019 defense and they compare that with something similar to the 2020 offense, then the team is going to be close to unstoppable. Right now, we're waiting on that the offensive side of the ball to catch up to the defense because the defense looks rock solid. And
Yeah.
I know Starr has an injury thing going on right now. We don't really know what's going to happen with him this week, but he looked really good when he was out there. Hopefully he's healthy enough to go. But even still, the defense looked good without him week 1. So it's not like I'm really scared if he can't play because I think the guys on the defensive line showed enough that I'm comfortable even if whether he's in there or not. Obviously, it's a plus if he is, but they've played really well so far. Everybody, literally, like there's not somebody on the defensive line that I would point to and be like, nope, you're not playing well at all. Everybody has some sort of positive that you can take away from their game so far, which is great. You normally cannot say that when they rotate. And another thing about Rousseau that I was kind of surprised about, not just the production, he got by far the most snaps out of anybody in the defensive end room. That was surprising. Yeah. You think Jerry Hughes, Mario Addison, they're the vets. They're probably still going to get the snaps. No, it's Rousseau. He just took over right away, and it's warranted because he looks like he's the guy. So that's awesome. I could not have been more wrong of my initial reaction to Rousseau getting picked. And I will eat my words on that, and I will be happy about it.
It's okay. I won't rub it in your face. Let's get to the dislikes.
Last thing, turnovers. The Bills created turnovers, and that was huge because the Dolphins were moving the ball. The reason they did not score at all was because of the turnovers. Yes. The Bills were not able to force the turnovers against the Steelers. They were able to put the Dolphins in some positions where either Brissett made a bad play or the Bills were able to force a fumble or whatever it was. The Bills made the plays necessary on defense, and they made the big plays. It wasn't just like we got the stops because against the Steelers, they got the stops. Against the Dolphins, they actually made plays. So I love that. But yeah, let's move on to the dislikes.
Well, I know. One more thing, guys. One more thing. I promise you. I think it's big for this defense to get a shutout. Regardless,
that's huge.
It's bragging rights, right? But when you have a defense that struggled last year to stop the run, to do a lot, it was all offense. Let's talk about the offense. This offense is great, and the defense is kind of, in the second half, and that wasn't like that in 2019 when they were big. And then all of a sudden, second game of the year, you're getting a shutout. Right? Talk about confidence soaring going into that Washington team. And I guarantee all they heard last year was, oh, the Washington football team, their defense is better. Their defense is better because guess what? Last year it was. But this year, the Washington football team secondary is a huge liability, and it's not allowing that defensive line to feast. So when you go in there, wouldn't it be awesome after hearing all last year how they were better than you to go into a game and actually absolutely stop them? So I just think it's huge that they got a shutout. That's going to be a big boost for everybody.
Yeah, I think dislikes. that was huge. Dislikes. I think so. I'll do my dislikes of. I think we can group the offense into just one talking category.
Yeah.
Matt Hawk, however you say his last name.
It's Hawk.
I don't really. It's Hawk. Okay, that's fine. Whatever. I don't really care about him except for the fact that he punts really slow, really slow.
Yeah.
I don't know about you, but I was nervous. I thought just about every single punt was getting blocked. I don't like that. I don't know if that's something that he needs to work on his timing, or if the ball isn't getting back there quick enough. And I don't know what the issue is, but it feels like the ball is not getting off his foot as fast as it was with Corey Bojorquez, or in just years past of other guys we watched punt. Because it just seems like the Dolphins were really close to getting a blocked punt. Maybe my eyes are deceiving me there. I hope they are. It's just something to pay attention to moving forward. Hopefully it doesn't end up actually becoming a problem, though. The other thing, Tyler Bass, I called him Mr. Consistency last week.
How dare you? You jinxed that.
Yeah, I'll take the blame on that. So my dislike is me jinxing Tyler Bass, because he's a good kicker. I don't like that he missed the kick, but in the grand scheme of things, if you're going to miss a kick, this is the game to do it in, and not a close game. So I'm okay with the missed kick, while also not liking the missed kick just because of circumstances. Just get it together and, get back on one of those runs that you went on last year, Tyler, because I know you listen to this show too. Then just the offensive consistency. I think there's a lot of things that are lumped into this. Turnovers, that you shouldn't have turnovers in a game like this. The Zach Moss fumble, Josh Allen interception. Josh Allen, that interception was just a bad throw. It was too. Yes. It was a great interception to be able to make that play, but it was also just a bad throw. And I think I want to talk about Josh Allen the most here, because as much as the offense itself was inconsistent, it felt like it was inconsistent because of Josh Allen.
Yes.
The thing I will say before we actually get into, I do have him as a caveat on my dislikes this week still. It's okay that he didn't play great. We do need to calm down about that. He did not play great. I don't even know if I would say he played good, average, whatever. It was nowhere near our standards for him. He needs to get a lot better. But just like we said last week, we're not panicking, or at least I'm not panicking. I think he will. It's just it might take a little bit of time this year, and that's okay. He can have a couple of those bad games, but at some point he's going to need to put it together where he's playing at that level that he did last year or close to it. Because when it comes time for a big game, you have to be able to win those. This didn't end up being a big game, and we were able to win. All right, the Bills were able to win, so it's not like the defense. It's not like the team is riding on the offense being great this year. It seems like the defense will be able to carry the offense when they have a bad game, which is very comforting. But he needs to play better.
So my thing with Josh Allen is he's doing too much at this point, right? And I said that last week. Take what the defense is giving you, and it's okay. But my thought, and I'm not trying to overreact, right? And I've got my overreactions in the next segment, but it's you've got two more games. You've got Washington football team, and you've got the Houston Texans, right? And then guess who comes to town, right? It's Kansas City, right? And what has it always? Every time we talk to the Bills fan, and every time we talk, or every time anything happens around the Bills, it's oh, well, they're not Kansas City. They're not prepared for Kansas City, right? So what game is one of those must-win games? There's no moral victories, anything, right? You want to win against Kansas City to say that you're the best, but can you win against Kansas City in 3 weeks with this offense? The answer is no. You can't. This offense is not ready yet, but you have 2 games to get ready. So my thought process is, if he comes out against Washington and he plays a smidgen better, right? A little bit better, a hair better, I'm okay with that, right? If he comes out and it's still the same, trying to chug along, because honestly, every quarter except for the second quarter was kind of an okay quarter for him, right? I was satisfied with those quarters. The second quarter, it was an interception, not doing what he's supposed to be doing, blah, 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 that good stuff. That was the quarter that really made me mad. And then he came out of halftime. He had a good drive to start the third quarter. I believe they scored on that opening drive. So it's little things like that. I want to see improvement, but you can't beat Kansas City with this offense. Not the way they're playing.
The way the offense is playing right now, it's not a Super Bowl ready offense. And that goes back to, it's okay if they're not like that right now. Obviously, they have to progress as an offense. They have to start to click. They have to start to – Allen has to start to hit his guys more. Stop taking all of your chances at the big play and just hit the guys that are open, because there's definitely guys in this offense who are open They just might not be 20 yards down the field. And I'm very certain that Allen will get to that point again where he's not always trying to go for the deep ball. The other thing is when he does go for the deep ball, and he hit one to Emmanuel Sanders, so that was great. He had the jump ball to Diggs, and that was just a beautiful play on Diggs' part. But when you have the opportunity, you got to actually be able to hit the guy that's open downfield. I think it's just going to take a little bit of time. I'm not nervous yet. I'll be honest. And so this is actually something that Clay mentioned. Clay Troya, another member of BF.
Friend of the show. Friend
of the show. He said something along the lines, and I'm paraphrasing here. He said something along the lines of, if Josh Allen is not playing his best, and he's playing the way he played against the Dolphins the entire year, of course, he's not going to win MVP. He probably won't even get a single vote, and that's fine. But if he gets hot at the end of the year at the right time and the Bills go on to win the Super Bowl, nobody will care. And that's kind of where I'm at. I want Josh Allen to be the Josh Allen he was last year. If he's not that in the regular season, it's not the end of the world. What matters is that he can be that Josh Allen in the big moments, in the big games, and then obviously in the playoffs. It's going to make you feel a lot more comfortable if he gets to that point well before the playoffs hit so that we can see him do it multiple times over and over and over again against good teams. It's going to help to have that. But if he doesn't become last year's Josh Allen during the regular season and then it clicks during the postseason, nobody's going to care and it's going to be okay. So I think we just need to calm down a little bit. Yeah. No one's going to remember the bad when the good happens because the good is happening at that point in time. So I think we all need to hold off on just going crazy about how Josh Allen is just not good anymore. It's okay if he has a little bit of regression. It's not the end of the world. But I didn't like the way he played, and I'm okay with saying both of those things. I'm okay with Josh Allen not being perfect right away this season. I'm also okay with saying I don't like the way he played. He needs to hit the open receiver. Just take what is available, and maybe that's gonna come in the form of let's get Beasley involved more. Let's get Knox involved more. Let's run some quick plays for Diggs and get him in space instead of trying to do longer developing routes. Whatever it may be willing to just hit the open man. And Allen said this, that he has to get off of his first read a little bit quicker sometimes. That recently he's been sticking on his first read too much. I think that's going to be huge. Once he gets that and he starts to go through his progressions again, he'll be fine. So I'm not worried, even though I didn't like the way he played.
I don't know.
Are you worried?
I'm not worried. It's like, okay, so, you've potty trained your dog, right? You've potty trained him. He barks when he wants to go out. You let him out, right? He's potty trained.
He rings a bell. All of a sudden, he's a good boy who rings a bell. Yeah.
He rings the bell, right? And then all of a sudden he doesn't ring the bell one day, right? And then he poops in the floor, right? And you're like, hey man, what's up? What's good, right? And then a few hours later he rings the bell and you're like, okay, well, the bell's there. You know that you have to ring the bell, right? Now I'm just kind of disappointed because it feels like, we're kind of not doing what we should be doing. And that's how I feel. It's not that I'm worried. It's more like, hey, I'm disappointed because it's like you spend all offseason talking about how, Josh Allen is there and he's gonna continue this play. And then you get into the regular season and it's like, it's not there. You know what I'm saying? And it's okay, right? It's more of a disappointment than a worry, right? I know that he's going to get it together, right? I'm just, at this point, it's like, well, here comes the offense, right? It's not like, yes, offense, we're about to score again. It's one of those things where I'm like, okay, well, the defense has been out there they're playing great, but they've been out there for a little bit. I don't see drives continuing. Third down is not what it was last year. It's like living in the past right now. I will say this, that I was a big advocate for Allen to play in the preseason for little things like this, right? I feel like chemistry needs to be there at game speed, right? Practice is one thing, but we're talking about game speed. And sure, preseason is preseason. You're not playing against real NFL. I don't care. It's game speed, right? So I wanted him to have game speed, and he didn't do it because everybody was worried about injuries. And shit. Zach Moss got injured. He tore his ACL getting out of bed one day. So like, put Allen out in the preseason. That was my only one gripe. It was like, hey, he needs chemistry, and the more times that he has these reps, the better he's going to get. So it'll just come with time and whatever.
Yeah, and
Not
when it
worried,
comes just the general offense inconsistency that I mentioned, that's my general dislike, that will change drastically once Josh Allen hits his stride and once he kind of gets into a rhythm a little bit better. Him and Dable, because Dable adding plays, we don't have to talk about this a whole lot, but Dable adding a bunch of plays the night before, I just don't like that. I don't love that. I know Josh Allen did as much as he could in the post-game press conference to put that more on himself, that they didn't run the plays well. But I know, sure, it happens. It can happen in the NFL. Teams do that, and that could be a reason why they didn't play as well this week. But all in all, Allen still has to just hit the open man, and he's just still not doing that yet. So give him time. It's like that was a great analogy, though. It just disappointed at the moment, and the disappointment will go away if he gets back to his old self. So that's the likes and dislikes.
I'll forget about it.
Yeah, so that's our likes and dislikes. I do have a winner and a loser from the week, and then we can do our overreactions. My winner of the week was Motor and Moss, just because the running game worked really well. Obviously, Zach Moss had his fumble, but we already talked about how he rebounded from that.
Yes,
they combined for 21 carries for 108 yards. Now, I know a large chunk of that was that touchdown run, but that touchdown run was huge, and a lot of people I know they try and discount. Well, if you take away that run, he wasn't all that good. Yeah, you could say that for every single back or wide receiver in the NFL. Take away their biggest play from a game. Oh, yeah, no, their numbers aren't going to look as good. That's kind of like the biggest no duh ever.
Yeah.
So you can't take it away from them because it happened. So I don't even care if they end up getting a single touchdown during a game, whatever. They combine for 100 yards together during games. I will be pleased with just the running game in general if they can combine for it. They don't have to get 100 yards individually. They don't have to get whatever. But 21 carries, 108 yards, that's really good production considering what we saw from the running game last year. I think they're my winner of the week. My loser of the week is literally anybody who placed any sort of blame on the defense for the loss against the Steelers. Literally any of you who put blame on the defense, you are the loser of the week because you're wrong. The defense was good week 1. The defense was great week 2. They just replicated what they did, but they were able to get turnovers this week, and they got home on their pressure. The defense looks great this year. The loss week 1 was on the offense. That's okay. It's okay to admit that. You don't have to try and avoid blaming the offense for the team's failure. The offense was bad week 1, not the defense. Let's move on from that. If you said that, though, you're the loser of the week. Not apologizing. Overreactions. I have 2 that I want to talk about. Do you want to do yours first?
My overreaction is the Bills' offense not clicking. Like, that's just me personally, right? When I was looking at it, we talked about it for a little bit, and I texted you in the middle of the game, like, hey, I've got an overreaction, because I knew it was an overreaction as soon as I thought it, because I'm a fan, right?
Yeah.
So as soon as I saw the offense not working, it's like, this is not – the way the offense is playing right now, the overreaction is the way the offense is playing right now, the Bills team is not a Super Bowl team. Like, they're not a Super Bowl winning team.
Yeah.
The way the offense is playing right now. That's my overreaction. I didn't tweet it out. I didn't say anything about it. But as I was watching the game, I was like, they won't make it to the Super Bowl. They won't even see the Super Bowl offense continue doing what they're doing right now. So that's my overreaction, my personal one.
Okay. All right. My favorite overreaction, because I don't have one from myself. I'm pulling other people's overreactions that either made me laugh or whatever. The first one is from Jerry Sullivan. We all know him from Twitter. Jerry Sullivan.
I love that you call these people out.
Yeah, I'm going to call him
Jerry
out.
Sullivan will ever listen to the show, but
but you know what? I hope he does, because he tweeted this at 3:25 p.m. mid-game. It was sometime probably early fourth quarter that he tweeted this. He said, "Is it time to start wondering about Diggs? He has 12 catches this season for 88 yards on a long of 13. This after leading the NFL with 1,535 yards receiving a year ago. Pretty much saying, like, is Diggs really that good? Like, he's just blatantly calling him out, saying, I don't know if he's what he was last year. Sure, that's fine. What does he do, like, minutes later? Oh, yeah, he just has an absolute moss of a catch over one of the best
that was nice.
cornerbacks in the NFL.
That was real nice.
It wasn't a well-thrown ball, but Diggs went up and he made the play. Like, he mossed him. There's no other way to say that. And let's just be honest, part of the reason why Diggs doesn't have the same numbers he had last year is because Allen isn't distributing the ball the way he was last year. Not because Diggs isn't a good player. So let's just not do that whole overreaction. Let's not blame Stephon Diggs because he can only catch the ball that actually comes to him. So let's just not do that. My actual favorite overreaction, though, was from Buffalo Fanatics' own Pierre Kingpin. Pierre, my man. This is a big overreaction. It's a bold prediction. He said it, but he said A.J. Epinesa will lead the NFL in sacks in 2021. He said that after the game. And
he was riding high, wasn't he?
He was riding real high.
He was riding high.
He doesn't have a single sack yet this year. I've already said I think that Epinesa is going to get close to or at double-digit sacks. That will be a major success for the Bills and for Epinesa this year. But he is currently 5 sacks off the pace. I'm sorry, Pierre. What are you doing? My man, like, that is a super bold prediction to make at this point when he hasn't gotten the sacks yet. I know he's gotten the pressures. He will get home. He's going to get sacks this year. Pierre, but, like, the sack leader is going to be, like, 16, 17, 18 sacks. And I'm sorry, but, like, you're not going to get a guy who goes from, what did he have, 2 last year maybe, to 17, especially when he doesn't have one yet. Like, if he had 2 sacks right now, if he had gotten home even once each game, I'd be like, yeah, no, like I get that. He's right in the running. He's got to make up a ton of ground right now, though. And we saw Chandler Jones. He got his 5 sacks his one game. It can happen. You can get sacks in bunches, like Pierre mentioned in one of the replies. But that's a huge overreaction to say that he's going to lead the league in sacks. He's going to be good. He's going to have probably double-digit sacks. But leading the league, I love the overreaction. But it is definitely an overreaction from Pierre there.
Pierre just had surgery. And those pills strictly say
they can do things to you.
And so I'm just, Pierre, calm it down now. Don't look. Hey.
All love, though, Pierre. All love. So that's where we're at. That's everything from last week. Real quick before we get into this week's game. Contenders.
What about the dude who said that Mitch Trubisky should start over Josh? Even after
I feel like we're going to get one of those every single week until Josh has – even when he has one of his big games, I feel like we're still going to get that because I think it was a WGR caller, right?
No, this one was
because they're crazy.
It was actually WGR employee who decided to put Mitch's stats in the last 5 games and then Josh's stats in the last 5
I didn't see this.
And then
who was it? I didn't see
Joe somebody.
Whatever. Okay, yeah, no, whatever. Yeah. That's just a terrible take by him. Is it Joe DiBiase, I think?
Yeah.
Terrible take by him. Sneaky Joe on Twitter or whatever. That's just anybody who's saying Mitch should be starting they're just trying too hard. Like he just wants attention.
Some random Twitter user decided to post Josh's last 5 games, like who the opponent was, and then Mitch's last 5 games, and then the records between both of them. And I think like the record for Mitch was like 12 and 27. Like their combined record, and Josh's was like 34-5 of combined record of the teams that he's faced.
Yeah,
and I was like, "Ooh!" Somebody said, "Hey, you want to see a dead body?" And like quoted those. And I was like, "Yep, that's it." So,
yeah. I mean, look, Josh hasn't played as well since the postseason hit last year, but he will. Like, I'm not actually nervous that he's not Josh Allen that we saw last year. So let's move on from that. Mitch ain't
much better.
He is. put this out all offseason. Mitch is a good backup. He is the guy that I wanted to be the Bills' backup. I didn't think it would be able to happen. The Bills made it happen. He is a backup, though. He is not the starter and should not be the starter of the Buffalo Bills. Let's just quit doing that. Let's quit trying to cause controversy that doesn't need to be caused. Pretenders, contenders. There are 7 2-0 teams. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Is it? Yeah, 7 and 7. 2-0 teams, 0-2 teams. Real quick, are there any contenders that are 2-0 or 0-2? Any of the teams that are at the bottom of the league right now? It's the Jets, Jaguars, Colts, Giants, Lions, Vikings, Falcons. Can you see any of them turning their season around, even just like a little bit where they could be a problem for teams?
The Colts, I think, would be the only one. Like, I know they've had a little bit of issues, but like I still believe in Wentz. So, obviously he sprained both ankles.
They're gonna have to deal with the injury.
Yeah, and shout out Steve Young, who's like, "How do you sprain both ankles?" Is like, what is because one was sprained, you can't sprain the other one? Like, you're an idiot. So shout out to him. He's a really smart guy. But yeah, I mean, if Carson Wentz, he just had surgery like 4 weeks ago. You know what I'm saying? They were supposed to like. They didn't think they were going to have him like week 5, and he's out there. So obviously, I think once he gets actually healthy, he could probably turn around. They could sneak in and be a wild card team and actually cause some issues in the postseason. But it's a long season going in. The Colts, that's the only team.
I had the Colts could be one if they get good enough quarterback play while Wentz is out. The other team I thought, though, I think in general the Vikings, they have I know Kirk Cousins is their quarterback and he is whatever. Very nice guy, but whatever. They just have so many weapons on their offense that it's hard to count them out because they could put up points in a hurry because the other guys on the offense can make plays. So I think they're the team. They're probably the team that I would say maybe pay attention to that's 0-2. But 2-0 teams. Give me just pretender or contender. Cardinals.
Pretender.
I think they're a contender. I think they are.
Okay.
I don't think it's because of their defense. I think it's because they just have, similar to the Vikings, they have weapons all over their offense. So I don't think they're going to be the exact team that they've been through 2 games, but I think they're going to cause some teams some issues with matchups. Rams.
They're a contender.
Yeah, I think that one's a no-brainer. They're good everywhere. Yeah. 49ers.
They're 2-0.
Yeah, they're 2-0.
I'm gonna say pretender on that.
So did I. I said pretender for them. Yeah, I don't think that they're like a real contender in terms of like getting to the Super Bowl even. Panthers.
They're a pretender. I mean, they might be a wild card team, but
I don't see them. That's what I think they are. I think it depends on how you define pretender contender. If you're saying they're only a contender if they can actually contend for the Super Bowl, which would be like the strict definition of it, then yeah, they're a pretender. They're not going to go to the Super Bowl. They're not going to get to the NFC Championship game. But I think they could be a contender in terms of like they could push for a wild card spot.
Yeah.
I still don't believe in Sam Darnold just as like he's going to go out and win you games. But they got some guys on their team who can make some plays, and they've rebuilt their defense to be good. Like, it might be a rocky road for them sometimes, but their schedule is favorable. They could be a team that makes a little bit of noise this year. Not a true contender, but a playoff contender, potentially. Buccaneers, contender. No need to talk about that. Yeah. Raiders.
Are the Raiders the best team in the AFC? I think they're a contender.
I think similar to the Panthers.
Quit sleeping on Derek Carr.
No, hold on. I think they are a pretender in terms of legitimately winning the Super Bowl because I do think that there is that element of, and we talked about this in terms of gambling, it's really tough to figure out what's actually going on the first couple of weeks. They got some dudes on their team too. They got guys on the defensive line. They got some guys in the secondary who can make plays. They might not be these real big name players all across the board like other teams have, but they got guys who can make some plays. So I think they are a pretender in terms of the Super Bowl, but they are a legitimate contender in terms of they could be a problem during the regular season, the entire regular season.
Yes.
And they're going to potentially, I think they're going to cause the Chargers to potentially miss the playoffs, which the Chargers were a hot team leading into this year. I think the Raiders could be a team that ends up bouncing them because they do well enough. So I think they're that type of contender. Last team, Broncos, I have them as a pretender just because their defense is great. Offense is led by Teddy Bridgewater. I think he's going to keep games close, but they're not going to win enough.
It's not going to be the offense being okay is not okay with as many weapons and the potential that offense has. So yeah. I agree.
And they play in a tough division too. Just a really tough division.
I mean, you're asking me to pick 2 playoff teams from that division. It's Las Vegas and Kansas City.
Right.
Sorry.
Yeah, me too. All right. Glad we got that figured out. Next week, this coming week, I guess, 2 days from now, 1 day from now, whenever you're listening, the Bills are playing the Washington football team. Still waiting on that new name from them because I believe they're getting one after this season. But they got some. They have some talented players. They're a good team. As much as there's a lot of questions surrounding them because Ryan Fitzpatrick is not playing, and that's a real big disappointment because I wanted to see him play against the Bills. They are a good team. I did.
Did you?
I did.
And
yeah.
The reason why I said "did you" is because it's scary when he plays against the Bills from a fan aspect.
Is it really though? Do you remember when he was on the Jets and they had a good team that was headed to the playoffs until the Bills stopped them because he threw 4 interceptions against the Bills the last week of the season? I wanted to see Ryan Fitzpatrick. I love the man. He's awesome, but I wanted to see him play.
Heineke is Ryan Fitzpatrick light.
I think Heineke is a lot better than people give him credit for. Partially because he hasn't gotten the chance yet. He's played 4 games I think so far, but the dude can move. He's got some legs on him, and I mean when he gets out of the pocket, he makes plays. It's not like he's like a Tua type of player where he's only going to be able to throw to his first read.
You do not like Tua.
No, I don't. I really don't like Tua. Him. No. But I think I use that because I think they are a different mold. You get Tua under pressure, if you make him have to move around and not throw to the guy that he thought he was going to throw to, Tua's stats completely just fall off. If you do that to Heineke, he can actually still make a play happen because he trusts his legs. So I think they are different players in that sense. I think the players that you have to watch out for, I don't think it's necessarily him being one of the main guys. On offense, the 3 guys that I have, and you tell me if you have anybody different, but Terry McLaurin, Logan Thomas, Antonio Gibson. Those are the 3 guys you have to watch out for because they're all guys who can make a big play happen. They're good. They're really good players. Terry McLaurin, probably one of the best receivers in the NFL. Logan Thomas has ascended to be one of the better tight ends in the NFL. But not only are they going to be consistent, they can hurt you with that big play. They can do it with the ball in their hands or just running a route and Heineke hits them. They're the type of guys you have to be able to wrap up and tackle because they can make something happen once they get the ball. So that scares me a little bit. Is there anything else about their offense in general that scares you?
I feel like there was one other person outside of those 2 people or three guys that needs to be watched out for. But I can't think of anybody else, so that probably tells me there's not.
If he was healthy, Curtis Samuel would be on the list, but I don't believe he's healthy.
Yeah,
still,
but I don't think so either. It's not necessarily the offense. I think the offense is serviceable.
I think they're probably. I honestly think they're above serviceable, but I get where your head's at with that.
Yeah, it's the defense that has me questioning, but at the same time being excited for Josh to kind of have an even better bounce back game, right? And it's because the secondary is such a letdown right now, right? It's bad, and it sucks for us, right? Because we were gambling Washington, money or not money line, but spread, right? And they did not get the spread, and it's they would have had it if their secondary wasn't such trash. So I'm
Mm-hmm.
curious as to what's going on in that point. But when you start thinking, oh, secondary is trash, and you have I'm not even going to name all the weapons we freaking have on the side of the ball. Dawson Knox being number one. So I mean, it's just that the secondary is what has got me thinking. My only point of emphasis is, that defense is capable of turning it around, just like our offense is capable of turning it around, right? That defense can come out there, and that offensive line, in the New York Giants game, that offensive line had 3 sacks in the first half, right? So it's possible for that defensive line to come at Allen and Allen to be pressured. So I think that's the biggest thing that we need to watch out for, is that defense having a bounce back game.
Yeah, I mean, I wrote down my defensive game changer was just the defensive line, because as much as you mentioned, like their secondary is not really that great right now. They're not playing all that well.
Correct.
You can cover that up a lot if you get to the quarterback fast. Quickly, and they have the dudes on the defensive line to do that. Chase Young, Montez Sweat, Daron Payne, Jonathan Allen, those are just their starters. They still have guys in that rotation behind them who can still play and make stuff happen. So their defensive line is going to be a huge test for the Bills' offensive line, because I think the offensive line still wasn't great by any means, but they played better last week, obviously, than they played against the Steelers. Now can they at least do what they did last week? Because if they can do that, if they can give Josh just enough time, not even just like give him a clean pocket every single play against this team, because you're not going to be able to do that against the defensive line like the Washington football team. But just give him enough time to make plays happen half the time, most of the time, more than half the time, whatever. Give Josh that time to throw and make something happen, and we'll be okay against that secondary. But that defensive line they're tough. And it's not just like they're tough in the pass rush. They can get after the ball carrier too. Yeah. They're not just a one-dimensional defensive line. So that worries. Well, they're better at just pin their ears back and go, but like the dudes in the center are big.
I agree. What I was going to say was, that's what happens when you spend 4 first-round picks on a defensive line. It better be a good defensive line, and it is a good defensive line. So with that point, you start thinking like, screen passes. Why don't we passes people like Emmanuel Sanders or Isaiah McKenzie or Stephon Diggs? You've got these speedy guys, even Cole Beasley. You've got these speedy guys on the side that you can actually run a good screen pass with that will slow down that pass rush and actually put a ton of pressure on the secondary. So I wouldn't be surprised if that's something that you see, little bubble screens. Also, the linebacker core for the Washington football team is really good. You got John Bostic back there who switched to weak side linebacker. I like his play. I've liked him since he was at New York Giants. Oh, you got – okay. I'll stop.
So I actually got something for that. So I got a buddy who is a Washington football team fan. I actually reached out to him earlier today, and I was like, hey, like what are your expectations for this week? And here's his original response, and then I will talk about John Bostic, which is why I stopped you. His original response was, we might get murdered. I don't know, though. You won't be able to run on us, so you'll have to air it out, which Josh should be able to. Heineke will give you some weird looks, and if you can't block Chase Young, that's going to be a problem. But, he's not all that confident going into the game. Here's what he said, though, and I gotta find this part. They have better than usual in their secondary, but the safeties are kind of weak. Landon Collins can't cover a tight end.
That's fair.
Let alone a wide receiver. Fuller and William Jackson on the outside are good, but they have a rookie in the slot. Important. Rookie in the slot right now. And then he says John Bostic has had every single ball thrown at him caught so far this year. I don't know if that's statistically true, but if he's right about this, even if it just feels like that, that's not good. But he said he thinks he's something like 10 for 10 for 200 yards against him so far this year. That's massive. That's why I stopped you, because if that is true, and I did not do any other research other than asking him, but if that is true, that is a huge liability considering how Dawson Knox has performed through 2 games. So the defensive line is great. The secondary can potentially make some plays, but they haven't really so far this year. But I think the middle of the field is going to be a weak spot for them. So that's why I stopped you, because I do think they have some guys who are talented at linebacker, but they just haven't played up to par yet. Even though, they have Jamin Davis, who is also, he's an athletic guy, but he's still a it's kind of raw talent. You never know what you're going to get. I do think that the Bills could use the middle of the field to their advantage, though. So sorry, I know I cut you off, but I felt like I had to get that in while I remembered because he mentioned something exactly about what you were talking about.
Well, I was trying to figure out, where if I could find like anything about
Those numbers,
and I really can't. I don't even see.
yeah, it's okay if we can't corroborate that. I'm just going to trust him on this one.
That's fine. He watches the games more than we do, right?
He called him an absolute liability, though.
An absolute liability.
Yeah.
He is really good in the run game.
Yes. So, and he didn't say anything negative about that, but considering the Bills are a more pass-heavy team, even if they ran the ball better last week, they are a pass-heavy team. Like, that matters that he has struggled against the pass. So, I don't know. That's what I have. I think it's going to be really important to, the offensive line is the key to this game, obviously.
It's got to be.
And let's just transition right now into the keys to the game. I have 3 of them. The offensive line is by far the biggest key to this game because if the Bills' offensive line plays the way they did against the Steelers, they're in for a world of hurt this week. It doesn't matter how bad the secondary and the linebackers have played against the pass. If they don't block very well, if they let Chase Young, Montez Sweat, Jonathan Allen, Daron Payne, all of those guys and their backups get free run at Josh Allen, it's going to be a really ugly game. The offensive line have to be, like I said, at least what they were last week in order to give the Bills offense and their passing game a fighting chance against this defensive line. So I think that's probably the first key to the game that I would say. Would you disagree with that or change that at all?
No, it's like it's like what your friend said. If you can't block Chase Young, it's not only Chase Young that you got to worry about. I'm not necessarily worried about the edge defenders. I'm worried about the middle of our line. I'm worried about Mitch Morris. I'm worried about John Feliciano. Whoever is playing next to,
I am less worried about Cody Ford still, which is pretty crazy, I think, to say after him having the career he's had so far. He has been the most consistent interior offensive lineman for the Bills so far.
But Jonathan Allen is on one this year.
He's a problem.
He's a problem. So you start thinking like that, Josh Allen's going to have pressure up the middle of his line, so it's going to be hard for him to step up and throw. So we're going to see a lot of Josh trying to roll to hopefully not his left. Is it his left that gives him problems, or is it his right?
It is his left that gives him problems. But I saw an interesting passing chart that Stephon Diggs was only targeted on the left side of the field, which was interesting. Nothing that really connects right there other than Josh Allen potentially rolling out to his left. But you said throwing to his left, and that just kind of triggered that a little bit in my mind.
Yeah.
I thought that was interesting. That's another thing to watch throughout the year. But yeah, the offensive line, the Bills' offensive line specifically, they have to win the line of scrimmage in order for the Bills to have a chance. Because if they don't, the Bills' offense is in trouble against this defensive line, as bad or average or whatever as the rest of the defense has been.
Correct. And that's why I think you attack the slot, quickly, quick slants to the slot, and you do bubble screen plays, at least in the first quarter. That scripted 10-play series, whatever you've got for the beginning of the game, it needs to be run the ball. That first play of the game should obviously be run the ball, I think, personally, right? You run the ball, and then you set up the pass through running the ball, which is the bubble screens, or attacking the slot, either with someone like Emmanuel Sanders, Stephon Diggs, just really anybody on our freaking skill position, guys. But you attack that, and you should be good. But if you set it up and you're asking Josh to do 3, 5, 7-step dropbacks, you know what I'm saying? Like, he's going to get murdered, and we're not going to win this game. Like, at the end of the day, it's just not going to happen if you ask him to do that.
So you mentioned something about my second key to the game there. I think working quick slants, working the middle of the field. You mentioned it in a way, but I just said my second key to the game is get Beasley and Knox involved early. I don't think it's getting Diggs and Emmanuel Sanders and the guys who line up more often than not on the outside. I don't think that should be the early focus of this game. I think the early focus of this game, outside of trying to run the ball efficiently, is getting the middle of the field, just work it consistently, go short, and just let them make plays after the catch. Because Beasley can catch the ball, turn around, make a guy miss when he turns. He's not going to run through anybody. We know that. But we've seen him multiple times run a quick slant, catch the ball, and go the opposite direction that he was running on the slant. He can make that happen. So he can make the first guy miss, get a couple extra yards there. We know Dawson Knox can get some extra yards once he catches the ball. And if John Bostic is as bad as my buddy is saying, which I'm not going to think that he is just absolutely abysmal, but I think that just showing that he hasn't been great, you try and go after him a little bit. If you can get Dawson Knox against John Bostic, I want to see what that happens. I want to see if Dawson Knox can take advantage of a guy who's been struggling. We saw last year Tremaine Edmonds and Matt Milano struggle a little bit more against tight ends. You have a linebacker who's doing that, who's not playing as well against tight ends. Take advantage of them, because that's what we all said, right? The tight end position, if we can get that going, this offense is totally different. So let's work Dawson Knox and let's work Cole Beasley into the offense earlier, because they just didn't do it enough this last week, and they were both successful when they got the ball.
I would like to see O'Brien D start being like these elite coaches that you see, right? Where it's like, hey, matchup scheming instead of just, I've got Diggs. Let's just throw the ball to Diggs. Like, I'd like to see him do what you just said.
I want to see the Bills do that, by the way. Still throw the ball to Diggs, but yeah.
Yeah, but game planning for a specific weakness in the defense instead of – and he did it last year. He did fine last year, but it feels like these first two games, it's like I'm going to be cutesy, and I'm going to show NFL teams that I can implement cute things into offenses. And it's like, why don't you just attack? Like, you're probably going to get a job if you just attack the weakness in every single defense for the next 17 games. Like, I don't know, like what the issue is. So I would just like to see him attack the weaknesses.
Yeah,
consistency.
Yeah. And then I have my last key to the game. The Bills did this really well during the entire Dolphins game. They blitzed the hell out of the Dolphins because that offensive line is shoddy. They're just average. Yeah. They were not good, and the Bills took advantage of that. I think the Bills have to do that again, because although Heineke can make some plays with his legs, I think you take the chance that if you blitz him, if you send it the extra corner or the safety, whatever, like they were doing that a lot against the Dolphins, and they were getting home. The Washington football team's offensive line is better than the Dolphins, but it's still not a great offensive line. Like, they have some guys on the offensive line who are good, but there's areas you can take advantage. You can confuse them if you have, especially with a guy who's only started 4 games in his career. As much as I think he can make plays after the ball is snapped, I don't think he's going to be able to call out the blitzes, call out the coverages as much as a guy who has a year, 2, 3 years of experience will. He hasn't seen that in live game action as much. Take advantage of that and blitz the hell out of him. Try and force him into bad situations, because you're getting extra pressure in his face that he didn't expect. If it's just 4 guys and they're getting home, that's awesome. But he's the type of guy who can get away from that sometimes. If there's 5, 6, 7 guys coming at him, I want to see that. So I actually think that blitzing him early and often is going to be huge for the Bills. And they've done it a lot this year so far. So I'm confident that'll happen.
If we turn around, we look at the New York Giants game, Heineke had all day to pass because they were only rushing 4, right? What happened when they decided to rush more than 4? Jack Del Rio had enough, was like, hey, let's rush more than 4. Hey, he started making big mistakes, right? Mm-hmm. So I think we see that, right? And I think we just attack it. So I agree.
Yeah, and I mean, if the Bills can get home with 4, awesome. That's great. Like, we want to see that. That's ideal. But if you go up against a younger quarterback who just doesn't have the experience, blitzing the hell out of him is not a bad thing to do. It usually is going to turn out in your favor. So I think that's my third key to the game, because I think stuff like that's going to help the Bills avoid those big plays that end up really killing the team down the stretch. So bold prediction. Do you have a bold prediction?
I do not.
All right, I will give mine, and you will come up with one as I'm giving mine. Does that work?
I typically do, yes.
All right. I figured. I just wanted to see if you had one ready or not. Kind of assumed that you were going to be coming up with it on the spot. I'm sticking with my Dawson Knox and Cole Beasley theme here, though. I really think that they're the two keys to this offense getting rolling, because you don't have to throw the ball way downfield to get them involved. You can get the ball out quick. Then the offensive line isn't as big of an issue if they're not protecting as well. I think Dawson Knox and Cole Beasley both end up with a receiving touchdown this week. And I think Cole Beasley goes over 100 yards receiving. So that's my prediction for the week.
Bold prediction is not Matt Malone, I'm sorry. Tremaine Edmonds gets a pick 6.
That would be incredible, and that would shut a lot of people up. I would love that.
Well, he has been flying around, right?
He has. He's been close.
He's been close. And I think with them targeting Logan Thomas a lot, or trying to, because he's kind of their second best weapon out there, I think Tremaine Edmonds comes down with one, right? And, he's a big boy. Let's get into the end zone if you come down with one.
Yeah. Yeah, that would be awesome. That would be another jump start for the entire team if the Bills defense can get a pick 6 at some point. And here's the other thing. I don't know the exact numbers on it, but I do know that statistically, when a team gets a pick 6, they are way, way, way more likely to win a game than if they don't.
Too.
So that'd be huge. We'll just leave it at that, because I don't have the exact stats to back me up right there. I just know that there are statistics that do.
And I'm sucking at this looking up stats thing on the fly. I've been on my phone trying to figure out stats for the last.
It's hard to. We both have very busy schedules, so we're just not able to prepare all of the stats. And if something comes up on the fly like this, we're not able to always go and find it. But just trust me, I guess. Over under though. Over under. It started out way different. I actually on Monday. The over-under, I think, was at 40. I think it was at like 40. Was it 46 or something like that? It moved a little bit. I have it right now at 45.5. So that didn't move a lot. But the line was Bills by 8.5 when it started. It has now moved down to Bills by 7.5. You put out take the Bills at 8.5. I'm just going to assume that you're still extra comfortable now with 7.5.
I'm a little bit more comfortable with 7.5. I don't necessarily like 8.5. I don't necessarily like it, but I'm going to take it. You know what I'm saying? Like,
you're not going to lie to the people,
season, this betting season has been really weird, and I've seen improvement in the Bills' offense every single week. Right? It's week 3. We're on week 3 now. I get it, yeah. But if you're expecting that one more jump in that offense, you're expecting them to score at least 10 points, right? So, or beat the Washington football team by at least 10 points. So I like it. I like 7.5 better. I would like, and I've discussed this with you and Steve and Dave and everybody else in the world, I would like 5.5 a lot better.
5.5 would be very comfortable at that point. I would be much more comfortable with that.
It's not gambling comfortable.
What? You cut out.
I said it's not gambling if you're comfortable.
That's true. I'm not going to bet the spread on this one, because if I were to bet the spread, I would be betting the Washington football team. I think it's going to be a touchdown or less. So I think at that point, while the spread is still at 7.5, which it might move more as the week goes on. So if it's changed at that point, I think, like you said, once it gets down to like 5.5, if it got down to that, then I would definitely be like, bet the Bills to cover. But at 7.5, I don't think the Bills win by more than a touchdown, and I hope I'm wrong. But I don't feel comfortable predicting more than that, just based off of I think Heineke is better than people give him credit for. I think their offense will be able to do a lot more than the Dolphins did, of course. And they would probably be able to do at least what Pittsburgh did, which is score a touchdown and a couple field goals. So I think they'll be able to put some points on the board, and I think their defense will cause enough problems with the defensive line that they will hold back the full potential of the Bills, although I think the Bills win, which is why I have my score prediction at 27-20 with the Bills getting the dub. 7-point victory. just barely under the spread.
You want to know something funny? And the reason why I made that face is because I have 28-21 Bills.
So you can't bet them then. If you have 28-21 Bills, you can't bet them to cover.
I can bet them. I can't bet them to cover. You are not.
So you're betting against yourself here.
Yeah, my official. Well, here's the thing, right? I write the gambling articles for BF, right? And when I was looking at it, I've got to include Buffalo every single week. Like, I feel like that's not something that somebody's been like, if you're going to do gambling, you have to include Buffalo. No, that's not something that's happened. But it's just one of those things where it's like, hey, like, you cover the Bills. Well, why are you not covering Buffalo? And when I start looking at it, it's like, hey, which team do you trust more to hit that spread? Do you trust Washington football team, or do you trust, the Bills? And you can make a case for the Bills hitting the spread, and you can make the case for them not hitting the spread. And the more I looked at it, the more I was like, yeah, I'm going to lean more. If I have to bet, I'm going to bet the Bills. So I took it. But
I get it.
Gut saying 28-21, right? I mean, that's what it's come down to. Now, I could see our defense going out there and absolutely giving Heineke fits, and I could see their defense coming out there and absolutely giving Josh fits, right? And it'd be one of those games where it's like 17-9, right? Like, I could see a game like that, but I'm going to go with 28-21.
Yeah, and because of my score prediction, I'm also saying if you're going to bet the over-under, I would personally be betting the over just because I think there will be enough points. But I think they definitely have it at the point where it is a grinded-out type of game where I am uncomfortable the entire time if I'm betting the over there. But I think the over is probably going to end up hitting. Yeah, that is it. We'll be back again next week, as always, Friday mornings on podcast, and Friday, I think it's going to be around like 11, either 11 or noon is when we're typically going to be released on YouTube. So make sure you are ready to go and watching us. If you do watch on YouTube, please subscribe to the podcast. Also, you don't have to listen to it twice, but if you just subscribe, that would be awesome. Help pump our numbers up even a little bit more. Yeah, go ahead and listen to us twice. I think
it's fine.
Maybe we're worth it, But we appreciate everybody who does listen, watch, whatever, however you interact, whatever. We appreciate you guys. And Casey, let me get a Go Bills.
Go Bills.
Go Bills.